In this video, I'm going to test out a really great weed control product on a bunch of different kind of weeds. I want to see how well it's going to work against some of the common weeds I'm seeing in the lawn. Today's video is sponsored by my friends at Yardbook. If you need a lawn care software, you should consider Yardbook. Go to yardbook.com to sign up for a free account. This video will probably help you also with weed identification because I'm going to tell you the names of the weeds before we spray them. I'm going to show you the product, then we're going to spray the weeds, and then we're going to check on the results to see how well it worked. So here's the product we're going to be using today. It's called Blindside, and this is going to run you around $150 per bottle. Now I know some people just flip out when they see that, but it really is a small amount that goes into a little handheld sprayer or backpack sprayer when you're spot treating weeds. This is not the type of product that I'm going to consistently mix in a big spray tank and go blanket the whole yard. There are cheaper options available. But for spot treating weeds, this can be a very effective product. One of the good things about this product is it can be used on both cool season turf grasses as well as warm season turf grasses. I believe it is labeled for tall fescue as well as Kentucky bluegrass. And on the warm season side, it's labeled for Bermuda, zoysia, centipede, and St. Augustine grasses. Make sure you're following the label and wear your PPE when you make the application. Now, for the warm season grasses, and what I'm spraying today is a Bermuda grass lawn. So for our warm season grasses, the low rate on this measuring cone is going to be 0.15 ounces and the high rate 0.23 ounces. On your cool season grasses, the low rate is the 0.075 ounces, the high rate is the 0.15 ounces. So seems like the warm season grasses are a little bit more tolerant of this particular product. So when you read the label and it says the range is from 0.15 ounces to 0.23 ounces on your warm season grasses per 1,000 square feet, oftentimes we'll equate that with 1 gallon of water in a spray tank. So if I'm gonna have a 2-gallon sprayer, then I'm gonna double that. So I might go 0.3 ounces. If I wanna go the low rate, I'm gonna go to 0.46 ounces if I wanna go the high rate. Typically, when I mix up Blindside, I'll go somewhere in between that. I go a little higher than the 0.23 ounces on this measuring cone and try to go in between the low and high rate. The active ingredients in Blindside, as you can see here, is sulfitrazone and methylfuron. Now you can buy those products separately and actually mix them together and sort of make your own Blindside, or you can just buy the Blindside and it comes pre-mixed for you. Like a lot of products that contain sulfitrazone, you do run the risk of causing a little bit of damage to the grass when you apply this, particularly in warmer climates, particularly when the weather is hot and on certain grass types. I'm spraying this in September. The temperatures are not that hot and on a Bermuda grass lawn, so I really don't expect very much damage at all. If I was using it on a zoysia lawn, I'd probably be a little bit more careful. I've already mixed this up with surfactant, and like I said, I go above the 0.23 line. My goal is to go in between the low and high rate, so about 0.34 ounces in 2 gallons of water with surfactant, and I'm going to spray lightly on the weeds that we're spraying today. I'll put a link in the description to Blindside if you want to check that out. All right, I've got the Blindside mixed up in these 2-gallon sprayers. I'll put a link to the sprayer I'm using. It's on Amazon. It's not great, but it's pretty good for the value. All right, our first 2 weeds right here together. I've got them marked with flags so I can come back and find them. This first weed, very common in the summertime, is called spurge. So that's what we're going after. Again, a Bermuda grass lawn, we should be able to clearly see whether we're damaged to Bermuda grass or not. The second weed is Virginia buttonweed. Nearly impossible to kill. I've seen it spray with Roundup. It doesn't seem to die even from that. But Blindside is a very good product for Virginia buttonweed. So we're going to see how well it works in this application. First up is the spurge. Next is Virginia buttonweed. You see, I'm just spraying the weeds very lightly. All right, got 3 weeds right here together. Let me show you those. This first weed looks kind of like a baby mimosa tree. You can see it here, and it's a little bit of a tough weed. It's called chamber bitter. So we're going to spray that one. Then I move over here. Got this, looks like a little 3-leaf clover. This is called oxalis or yellow wood sorrel. So I'm going to spray that one. And then thirdly, I've got a little patch of dandelions here. So I'm going to spray these dandelions, these larger weeds, and we'll see how they do. All right, first up, the chamber bitter. All right. Next is the yellow wood sorrel. Next is the dandelions. Moving on to the next weeds. All right, this next weed's gonna be quite a challenge for it. We'll see how well it works. I don't know if this is called dichondra or pennywort. I get them confused, but they look like little lily pads almost growing low to the ground, and they can be quite invasive and take over a good section of the lawn. So we're gonna see how well blindside works on this particular weed. If you know the name of this weed, please leave it in the comments. Next up, and this is a weed I've been getting asked about a lot lately. It's called doveweed. It's really tough. It likes wet areas. I've been using Spectacle Flow in May, trying to get ahead of it in my lawns. And sometimes you still end up with a little bit of doveweed. Celsius is a good product. Surge is a good product. Blindside is also a good product. You may have to do 2 apps on any of those products as a post-emergent. But we're going to spray it with the Blindside today and see how well it does on 1 app. All right, the last weed I'm gonna spray is not the spurge. We already tested that, but you see right beside it with that little spiky ball, this is Kalinga. I think this is false green Kalinga, and there's a little patch of it here. It has a little shinier leaf. It's a sedge. Blindside usually will give you a little burn down action on your sedges, your purple nut sedge, yellow nut sedge, and Kalinga. Typically better on the yellow nut sedge and the Kalinga, not quite as good on the purples. Let's see how it does on this Kalinga. All right, we got the weed spray. We'll check back on the results and see what happens. So it's been 48 hours since we did the blindside application. Let's go see what the weeds are looking like. First up, we've got the spurge. Definitely see some stuff happening on the spurge. It's not dead yet, but again, it's only been 48 hours. When you think back a blindside, it's got the sulfentrazone in it, which is going to give you a quick burn down. It's also got the metsulfuron in it, which I believe has to be watered in. We did get a little rain shower after I applied this, so I think it's going to work. Now, that's not the fastest active ingredient with the metsulfuron, but we might have to get a little bit more time, but let's just see what happens. So there's the spurge. Here's the Virginia buttonweed. It's showing some signs of discoloration. Nothing crazy happening after 48 hours. You see a little bit of discoloration on the chamber bitter. Again, nothing too drastic. Got your oxalis yellow wood sorrel in there, turning colors as well. Looks like getting a little bit of wilting, a little bit of discoloration on our dandelions here. Compare that to the one that's not been sprayed. It's obviously more green than this one that's showing some discoloration on the leaves. Now this was the one I wasn't sure what it's called, but same thing, discoloration on the leaves. I'll be real interested to see if that continues to die. Doveweed, I would say, has pretty good results after 48 hours. That's one of the more severe damages that we got to the weed. It's not dead, obviously, but we'll see what happens as we continue this video. The last weed is our Kalinga. We usually get real quick burn down on the sedges, so we'll see what it looks like. This is sort of what it normally looks like. You start seeing the spiky ball on top of the Kalinga looking all brown looking, blotches on the leaves. It's gonna hopefully suppress the growth from a while. So let's give this application some more time so we can see some more drastic results on our next checkup. Well, it's been about 10 days since we sprayed the blindside. Let's check on the weeds. All right, I'm hoping to see some serious action this time. Looks like you can see the difference in the green here on the Bermuda versus definitely some noticeable damage on the Bermuda turf. So you gotta be careful and spray it at a lower rate possibly. But you can see the actual spurge is down in there and it basically wiped it off the map. So it did a great job, but a little bit of turf damage. That's most likely from the sulfentrazone in the mix. Virginia buttonweed, again, you can spray it with Roundup. I don't think it's gonna die, but that's pretty good results as far as suppressing it and keeping it down for a while. So me spraying this in late summer, it's probably gonna keep it down for the rest of the year, and it'll be back next year most likely. Chamber bitter, very good results, toasty brown, compared to some chamber bitter that was not sprayed. You can see right here, it's still leafy green versus this. So hard to get much better than that. The yellow wood sorrel is significantly more damaged than the last time we looked at it. Pretty pleased with those results. Again, you can see this a little bit of St. Augustine grass and got some discoloration from the blind side on that as well. Now the discoloration is going to bounce back, okay, so I'm not like super concerned about it. And if you do it during other times of the year when it's not quite as hot, you shouldn't get as discoloration as well. But even spraying early in the morning, late in the evening, in the summertime, you may get some discoloration. There's a dandelion, not overly blown away by the results we got with that. There's a healthy one that hasn't been sprayed. Now, if that was cut with a lawnmower, it may not come back. So it may be a mortal wound, I'm not sure. Not as visibly impressive results as we got with some of the other weeds. All right, not a whole lot changed with the penny wart or whatever we're calling this weed. I'm not sure it's gonna kill it, to be honest with you. If I was gonna attempt to kill this weed, I know for warm season grasses like solitaire is a good product for wild violets, and I'm wondering if that might also work on this particular weed. I'm not really sure. Doveweed, not much change since the last checkup. Looks about the same. I think that's about as good results as we're going to get on one application. Again, a lot of these products will knock doveweed out in 2 applications: Celsius, Surge, Blindside. So I would imagine another application would do significantly more damage to the turf. And you can see some Bermuda grass in there that looks fairly green, so that's a good sign. And lastly, the Kalinga, it's hard to get much more burned down than that. You see one that's not been sprayed and how it's probably 5 to 6 inches tall versus this. It's not growing and it really burned it down. Now, hopefully the Bermuda grass would fill in that area. I don't think the Kalinga is going to die from this application, but again, it's a situation where you spray it late in the year, it's going to keep it suppressed until the winter kills it. It'll most likely be back next year, but hopefully less and less, especially since I'm trying to use Spectacle Flow in May, and hopefully that's going to help suppress a lot of the Kalinga. Thanks for watching. You can see it's a foggy morning. I'm out here. Hopefully you learned something in the video. You learned something about Blindside. You see the results on video for yourself. If you want to get into weed control and fertilization, you can go to lawncarelife.com. A lot of resources for you there, including the weed control and fertilization packages, there's pricing charts, documents, things like that. I think I have over 1,000 videos on the channel, so I encourage you to subscribe or hang around and watch some more videos. We'll see you in the next one.